Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Covfefe. Today is Thursday, July 11th. I'm your host, Carter Laren, and I'm joined, as always, by the bad man Majama over in Texas, without a hat today, Keri Smith.
Good morning, Carter.
Where's your hat? I'm in mourning.
I don't need the hat today. My hair doesn't. It's okay. It's passable.
It's only to hide unpassable hair?
It's in the mornings when I'm like, this hair.
It's not that early for you, actually. Your concept of morning is confusing to me sometimes.
Look, it's 9 a.m. That's the morning.
Yes, like I said.
Well, plus, look, with curly hair, you can't sleep on it and then have it be okay in the morning. You have to get up early enough to wash it and let it dry. Otherwise, hat day.
You're out of my league in terms of my knowledge ended a few sentences ago. So I don't know. By the way, we asked people for show ideas and like what they like to see and what they don't. So please keep them coming. Thank you for that. Someone suggested that we actually have listeners call in, which I've wanted to do for a while. So if listeners are down, like coming on a show and having a conversation about whatever, that would be fun. So let us know. You can send an email to speak@unsafespace.com and we'll eventually get back to you. And yeah, totally down.
Also, just one note, we are still looking for help. If anyone wants to help Carter edit things, it would be actually.
Yeah. I've had a few people reach out to help in with static photoshopping stuff, which is fine and nice. Not the big time suck. The big time suck is video editing. The other thing that actually I was thinking that's not technical that we could use is someone to just help procure interesting guests, like go out and find interesting, experts in areas that we want to talk to and do the logistics, trying to coordinate that. But I don't know.
I have one more thing. Book club. I saw in the book club group on Facebook, people are talking about the books. They're like, people are, I'm on chapter so-and-so, whatever. Just a reminder, we are doing a book discussion in August, the first week of August. So, and it's going to be Brave New World. If you haven't started reading it yet, you should. This is your warning. What are we, 4 weeks out? So.
Yeah, something like that.
It's not a very long book, but you should still.
I haven't actually started it yet because I don't want to read it and then forget it before the discussion.
Yeah.
So
my dad has my copy, so I've got to get another one. But he's going to join us.
Yeah. Actually, someone posted an article the other day arguing that everyone says we're in 1984, but we're not. We're in Brave New World. That's what we're in.
I've read that article. It's true.
Yeah, I'm glad we're reading that first.
1980, because 1984 is the way I view it, just really quickly, is a right-wing authoritarianism. And just, again, this is just shorthand, but Brave New World is like left-wing authoritarianism. And that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah. So there's all that. Keri, something inevitable happened. I think it's kind of sad, actually, and funny, though. It's one of those sad, funny things. Mississippi, this is a headline from CNN. Mississippi gubernatorial candidate denies female reporter access to campaign trip. Republican running for governor in Mississippi denied a female reporter's request to accompany him on a campaign unless she brought along a male colleague, insisting Wednesday that he did so because he just wanted to keep things professional. So
in today's climate,
Robert Foster's his name, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, in today's climate, I don't see a problem with this. That's what we've now come to.
Right. He cited religious reasons, but I think they're easier to cite, especially in Mississippi, than what I think the actual reason is, which is I don't want to be liable if the woman turns out to be crazy and says I did something and it's a he said, she said situation and everyone's going to believe her and I have no way to exonerate myself.
Right. And using the religious reason is better than using the gender. You can't really use that. It's discriminatory. Right. But yeah, it's, this is completely understandable. Most of the press, as we know, the legacy media is left-wing. Is this guy right wing or left wing?
He's Republican. I don't think that means right wing.
But, more conservative.
It does to CNN.
Let's just assume he's more conservative. I don't know him.
Yep.
But he's conservative. Most legacy media tends to lean left. How do you know who this person is? How do you know that in 10 years they won't come out and sabotage your attempt to get on the Supreme Court? Say we were on a plane together,
Right. I covered his campaign, and when no one was looking, he groped me. Right.
I mean, that's where we're living now. That's the world that we created. And that's why I was so the Cavanagh thing changed me. I was so upset about that because I saw people, loads of people, not just SJWs, mainstream, what I would consider like normies, who just were like, believe all women. I'm like, do you understand the repercussions of this?
Yeah. And smart people are aware of this, and they've been aware of it for a while. And I guess I just called myself smart by mistake, but I didn't mean that. I didn't mean
Carter,
the arrogant.
Carter, you're smart. It's not an arrogant.
Partner and I, literally 2.5, 3 years ago, sat down and had a discussion with our office manager, who was a gay guy, so we could talk more openly about this stuff with him than if he had been a female. But we sat down and had a discussion with our office manager, and we said, if a female founder, we were running a venture firm, if a female founder comes in, she can never have a meeting with just one of us. There needs to be someone else in the room at all times, always. And neither one of us were particularly concerned about awkward situations or religion, both atheists. Neither one of us was concerned about any of that. Our concern was we are targets for males who are, especially men who are perceived as, successful or having money or whatever. You're a target for being accused of things in situations where you have no recourse to demonstrate that you're innocent, right? You're presumed guilty. And so if one of these people just decided, screw you, I don't like that you didn't invest in me, or I didn't like the advice you gave me, or whatever it is, then they could ruin our lives. And so I stopped mentoring. I have a few female founders that I still mentor, but they're legacy. I've been mentoring them for years, but I stopped mentoring I stopped taking new female founders to mentor. And it's actually, most of the people I had mentored in the past were female founders. I don't know if it just happened that way or whatever, but it's not that I don't want female founders to succeed or have access to things. I don't want the cost. It's too much of a risk. I don't want to deal with it. And, and the truth is, we did have some crazy people. Some were male, some were female, accuse us of crazy things. Fortunately, the females, the males, no one believed, because they weren't crazy sexual things that they accused us of, because that's not how guys work. But the women also didn't accuse us of anything sexual, but they accused us of racism and all this other stuff. And fortunately, there was other people in the room and people that knew the facts, and it helped mitigate it. But, there are the idea that we should just assume everyone is not going to try and pull some of this shit. That idea is fine if we live in a society where you really are innocent until proven guilty. But if we're going to live in a society where you're guilty until proven innocent, then I'm sorry, you have to isolate yourself from anyone who could potentially lie about you and ruin your career. So this makes total sense.
So just look at the headlines, the way like the most recent Trump accuser, for example. That's a story that is never going to be able to be verified at all. So it's a he said, she said. There's no witnesses. There's no what. So I think it used to be. It used to be that the press wouldn't post a headline and a whole article about something that didn't have a lot of evidence. But now they'll just say, like, the headlines, new Trump accuser, da da da, and just run with it. And we saw that during Cavanagh as well, because after Christine Blasey Ford, there were a couple of really sketchy women who came forward and said stuff, and who were, one of them I know was later debunked. It was just made up completely, had never met him or something, but they put it in headlines. They ran with it. And that's the world that we're living in now. So it does make sense to me. And what a weird thing that in some way this SJW part of feminism has pushed us to a place in culture where we're aligning with conservative Christian beliefs, some conservative Christian beliefs,
Right.
which is that women should have a man in the room so that there's no temptation or whatever, or have someone in the room with you if there's a man there. Like I went to a church service out here. I don't know when this was, a few months ago. It was longer than that. And the sermon was about sexual immorality. This is back when I was visiting different churches, and I went with this friend to his church, and it was more like fire and brimstone kind of church. At least that's the impression I got from the one service. But one of the things the pastor said was, he actually, I got to hear the sermon all about this guy's reasoning for this. If it's truly religious, his reasoning is the flesh is weak, and so you don't put yourself in any situation where there would be temptation. Like, why put yourself in temptation's way? So even though I may not have the hots for my female secretary, why be alone with her ever? But because who knows what maybe I would develop that. So just always have someone there. And so he said in his sermon, I don't ever take lunch or go anywhere with a woman alone who's not my wife. And none of our deacons do. And that was an example he gave. And it made me think of Mike Pence, for example. But I think it's funny that we're at a place now where SJW style third wave feminism has pushed us to a place where it's that kind of aligning with these conservative Christian values. Isn't that weird? I
mean, I'm like a relatively libertine atheist is like, I don't want to be in the same room as I don't want to be
like be alone with a woman.
I don't know. It's just I don't, this is the culture. So if they want to drop the whole guilty until proven innocent thing and smear campaign against people just because there's accusations, then I'll go back to mentoring female founders. And this guy I don't know about this guy. It might actually be religious, but people will go back to not being concerned about it. But, I'm someone who's talking about it. Other people are not going to talk about it. I guarantee there are people out there doing this, curbing their interaction, and it's negative, and they're not talking about it, and it's negatively affecting women who don't deserve to be shunned and ostracized, but they're being kind of shunned and ostracized a little bit, or made things a little bit harder not because the person's a misogynist, but because the person's deathly afraid of how much you can ruin their life with just a single accusation. And now they've got to protect themselves.
This reminds me of something. I haven't looked it up, so I'm not going to get it right. But I remember I posted about it sometime last year, just outside of a cafe. I overheard a really brief fragment of a conversation between two men. And he was talking about, it seemed like one of them was new to the company or something. And he said, well, you got to be careful when you hang out with people outside of work, because, Me Too and stuff.
Yeah.
It was really like, you can't be careful who you form friendships with outside of work and what you do outside of work. And it almost seems like it does. It discourages employees forming closer bonds, like friendship bonds.
It creates old boys club, because the guys are going to be like, let's all go out for a drink. And they're not going to want the woman to come, because no one's going to want to be stuck alone with a woman and have an accusation hurled at them that can't be debunked.
Right. We're in a place where people are expected to prove a negative now.
Yeah. So this is why logic matters, and logic is not a tool of white oppression. When you have something that's completely illogical, and that's how you decide to structure your culture, well, it distorts things in crazy ways, and you end up with this. So congratulations, leftists.
I have one more thing to say about this. I do, of course, this is a caveat I have to make. Yes, for a long time, society, we have not taken women's claims seriously. And there has been a fear, I believe, for people to come forward with rape allegations, to come forward with, telling what happened to them. But what we've done, like we've done with a lot of things now, is SJW Ideology has said, well, let's do the inverse of that. Let's go all the way over here, which is insane. And so it's the same way. It's like, let's cure sexism with sexism, or let's cure racism with racism. It's this, let's stretch the rubber band way too far until it snaps, instead of pulling it to a place that's more just and equal.
Yeah. I mean, it's failure to actually correct the problem in any fundamental sense, right? There's the fundamental philosophy behind it, and if you really, really don't want to understand the principles, you just do the opposite of the wrong thing, and you do the other opposite wrong thing.
Yes.
How about you actually understand the principles behind it and stop doing both wrong things? Can we build that society? And honestly, when I was growing up, I kind of felt like we were headed in that direction. Maybe that's nostalgia, but I felt like growing up, a great example was like, we were told to be colorblind growing up. Like, that was the goal. Was everyone colorblind? No, but that was the goal. And if someone wasn't colorblind, they could be shamed for not being colorblind. And now we're not supposed to be colorblind at all. Colorblind is racism.
So their logic, SJW logic on this is, like you just said, not everyone was colorblind. So SJW's logic, it's not logical, but they say because people are not colorblind and they have this bias that they may not even realize, that we can't afford to be colorblind. And when you say that you're colorblind, you're lying. And so it's not a goal to work towards. Now we have to see race because others see race. And it is like, it's like, well, this over here is wrong. Judging people by race is wrong. But because it happens, we're going to flip to the inverse. Like,
well, and they grossly overestimate what happens. Like, yes. when I say some people were not colorblind, I mean some people.
Yeah, I agree.
Not everyone.
Yeah, but they mean everyone. Or let's just say they mean some people. Because some people are not, then they say we have to go way over here. Now, none of us should even try to work towards that. We have to judge people on the basis of race because it happens. So racism to cure racism.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate. You can see the very beginnings of this in this story about this candidate. It's the ultimate end game for all of this is utter tribalism. The only way you can have that mentality is to segregate into groups of sameness. All white guys hang out together. All white women hang out together. All black women hang out together. All trans Latinos hang out together. Like, there's no way to build a society with a mix of people. If you're going down that path, you will get self-segregation.
Well, it's happening. So I look at the colleges as like a petri dish for what's going on with the SJW ideology, and because then it filters out to the rest of culture. That's what's been happening. Yep. So universities right now, you have segregated graduation ceremonies. You have people. Yes, this has been happening. This is a trend now.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, and it's the left, it's the SJW segregating and saying we're going to have a black graduation ceremony, or we're going to have we're going to have an LGBT graduation ceremony. And that's kind of, again.
I know. How about a black water fountain? Oh, wait, no. That's
how about a white, like, it's just such a,
what the hell?
No, by the way, you're going to get in trouble for that joke. But that joke is
fuck people who think that's a bad joke.
That joke points out exactly what is wrong with this. That's why that joke is funny, because you would never consider having a black water fountain. And I mean, because we know what that, and if we look,
right, we know that's racism. That's obvious.
Yes, we can look back at history and say that was wrong. Who doesn't agree that was wrong, right? Now we're in this weird place where we're expected to do mental gymnastics to say that was wrong, but segregated ceremonies are not wrong, and here's why, blah, blah, blah. It's not a good thing. Like,
no. I wonder if they'll start having segregated degrees. Do you have a black degree from Harvard or a white degree from Harvard? Because It depends.
It's a weird world. You have SJWs, I mean, God bless them, with all good intent, some of them with good intent, and so a lot of them with bad intent. But some
this
of
is
them
where you and I diverge often.
It's where we diverge. But some of them with good intent, it's crazy that they can't see. They are remaking it's almost like, racism and sexism were getting better. And then we reached a point where it's like, oh, everything's getting worse again. Why? Because they're pushing this. They're pushing tribalism, like you said. They're pushing racism and sexism. And God bless the ones who believe that they're doing it for good intent. I'm like, those are the ones I'm like, come, wake up. Come back. Don't push us off the cliff.
Well, I think the most generous thing I can say is that most people just aren't thinkers. They don't think about this stuff. They're not, I'm not saying necessarily they're not smart. Obviously, half the people are above average intelligence, but they're not thinking about this stuff. They're not applying themselves. They're not really using their brain to think through things on their own. And that makes them easily led by someone who has evil intentions and is pushing an ideology with, nefarious goals in mind. And you become a pawn in that chess game if you're not going to step outside and think independently.
Carter, this is what a lot of my online discussions with SJWs is like, what's your source for saying that half of all people are above average intelligence?
My source is white.
Wait, what's your source?
White privilege is my source, because math is also a tool of oppression. So I used my oppression tool bag and made that statement.
Okay.
I think it's time to end this covfefe, Keri.
It's a good covfefe. Yeah.
It's definitely. Is there an
should
adjective for covfefe? Covfeable? Covfefe. That will be an adverb. I don't know.
Covfefable.
It's covfeffed up. I'll give you that.
That's a good one. I like that one. We should tell people deprogrammed. Is it going to be a different time today because of?
Oh, yes. Although let's hope this video is even out by the time deprogrammed starts.
Right.
But yeah, we're going to do deprogrammed an hour early today. So if you're seeing this video and it's 10 Pacific already, or after 10 Pacific, you're missing deprogrammed. Stop and come back to the video later and go watch deprogrammed. And we may have to change deprogrammed to 10 o'clock Pacific time moving forward permanently. But
to accommodate my schedule. We'll see.
Yes. All right. Say goodbye, Keri.
Goodbye, guys. See you later today. Dear Google, YouTube, AI overlords, we offer up this reading of SJW Sacred Text, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack by Peggy McIntosh. Continuing where we left off. Difficulties and dangers surrounding the task of finding parallels are many. Since racism, sexism, and heterosexism are not the same, the advantaging associated with them should not be seen as the same. In addition, it is hard to disentangle aspects of unearned advantage, which rest more on social class, economic class, race, religion, sex, and ethnic identity than on other factors. Still, all of the oppressions are interlocking. As the Combahee River Collective Statement of 1977 continues to remind us eloquently. One factor seems clear about all the interlocking oppressions. They take both active forms, which we can see, and embedded forms, which as a member of the dominant group, one is taught not to see. In my class and place, I did not see myself as a racist, because I was taught to recognize racism only in individual acts of meanness by members of my group, never in invisible systems conferring unsought racial dominance on my group from birth. Disapproving of the systems won't be enough to change them. I was taught to think that racism could end if white individuals hanged their attitudes. But a white skin in the United States opens many doors for whites, whether or not we approve of the way dominance has been conferred on us. Individual acts can palliate, but cannot end these problems. This has been today's reading of The Sacred Text Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack of White Privilege by Peggy McIntosh.